Hello and welcome to halftime of the footy. We're midway through the grand final replay, West Perth and East Perth, the traditional Perth Derby. So you might be asking yourself, what's this guy doing at Fremantle Oval? Well, I'm here to track down one of East Perth's favourite sons, a guy who's probably asked himself a very similar question. Now, I must warn you, the following images may be offensive for East Perth fans. The Swan name is synonymous with the East Perth Football Club. 171 games, 90 of those as captain. For 11 years, he bled black and blue.
How's that? Bit better?
Swanee, it's with great pleasure that I present this to you after a great career with the Royals. It's great to have you here with the South Fremantle Footy Club, mate.
Thanks, Gaz. Great to be here, mate.
Wear it with pride.
I will do.
Swan's headed south, appointed to the role of head physio at the South Fremantle Football Club.
Too good an opportunity to turn down, and it's something that I want to pursue is my career, because that's something that's been put on the back burner through my football career, and now with retirement from football I wanted to put a bit more time into my physiotherapy career and develop myself in this football and sporting environment.
Still feel torn though, having to wear the red shirt rather than the royal blue?
Definitely not. No issues with wearing the South Fremantle shirt at all. I do have a little bit of a family connection with South Fremantle Football Club. My wife's pop is Clive Lewington, and he's a legend here at the football club, winning a Sandover medal and a Simpson medal. So I've always definitely had a soft spot for South Fremantle.
Swan is charged with keeping a squad of over 50 Bulldogs players as healthy as possible during the 2014 campaign. Each week, Coach Paul Hazelby's focus is firmly fixed on players who are available for selection, while for Swan, his skill set is applied to those who aren't.
Up until round one, I was absolutely wrapped. We had very, very few injuries, and we're only 3 games into it, and we've unfortunately come across a few injuries which are keeping a few league players that are definite starting league players out at the moment, and they're probably going to be a few weeks away still from returning. And unfortunately, we've also lost a couple of guys through the reserve system. So, as what would probably normally happen, you do get the injuries once the games start. We've probably had 2 to 3 injuries each week, which are actually currently keeping players out. So the list isn't huge, but you'd always like it to be less than what it is.
It's hamstring strains that create the biggest headache for football physios.
Train, but you just go at your intensity. Don't push it, okay? So if it's 80%, it's 80%. Bit of caution with your ground balls, and when you're taking off and slowing down, okay? It's definitely the most common injury at AFL level, and that's responsible for the most games missed. So there's probably a number of reasons in terms of the amount of acceleration and deceleration there is in the sport, and just the requirements of the players, just because it's such a high-speed game, that just that repeated sprint effort, and that's when your hamstring's most susceptible, is the acceleration and deceleration, the bending over at high speed.
5.5 years of university study, plus over a decade of playing elite football. Swan's resume is one that stands out.
Okay, and pull up, pull, pull. Okay. Right.
I think Swanee, being a player, being a high-level athlete, and back in the day being an AFL athlete, being out of the system, I think that brings a lot of credit. The players respect him. He understands them. He has an empathy for them. So what he says, they can relate to, and I think that's very important.
I've had a lot of experience with not only injuries myself, but teammates having injuries. So it's and being exposed to excellent physiotherapists and physiotherapy treatment myself, and that's definitely helped, because I've been able to discuss professional issues for injury management with a wide variety of physiotherapists, which definitely helps my development, but also ultimately will help the players, because they're going to obtain optimal treatment. So once we assess the players that need to be assessed, and then we put them where they need to go, whether it be rehab or modified training or full training, then I'll come in here and I'll just update our spreadsheet that we have. So then that spreadsheet will get emailed out to all the coaches, so then they know what player is where and approximate time to return to training, return to playing. So it's pretty important that I get this information out to the coaches. Otherwise, sort of that communication can break down and get lost between the coach, the player and the physio, which we want to avoid.
And while his immediate focus is on the health of South Freo's list, it doesn't take much before conversation returns to his days at East Perth.
WAFL game 170 for Michael Swan, former captain of the club. From 50 out, Swan sends it on its way. He kicks the big goals for the Royals, Michael Swan.
His final game was last year's Derby Grand Final, and the veteran went down swinging.
I know it's a bitter pill to swallow. I've been there before, and it only makes you stronger. So.
Yeah, and it will sting for the rest of my life. And on the day, West Perth were clearly better than us, and they deserved to win. So, and as I've said previously, the players that played in that game have to live with that, and a lot of the players aren't there at the club now. So, that's something they've got to deal with. The players that are still there at the club, they've got an opportunity this year to do something about that. It's a very fierce rivalry, and there's nothing better than playing in a derby game, because that whole week of training, you really prepare yourself. Not more so than when you're playing other games, because that would be unfair, but you really make sure you prepare yourself to the nth degree and make sure that you're ready to go come bounce down on Saturday, because it's so much fun to be involved in those games.
He was no stranger to the physio table during his playing days. Numerous shoulder dislocations, fractured bones and a torn groin, just to name a few of his injuries. But after hanging up the boots, Swan assumed the worst was behind him. That was until earlier this year, when he and his wife went travelling around the US and Canada.
3 days into our skiing component of the trip, I injured my knee and ruptured my ACL, which was pretty silly. Yeah, it was at the top of the mountain, it was minus 20 degrees, and I had to wait for about 30 minutes to get rescued, and my fingers had gone all numb, and my toes had gone all numb, and it wasn't much fun, but it's an experience and a story now. Is that pressure okay?
Opening his own physiotherapy clinic is a major goal now for Swan as he looks towards the future. But when it comes to his past, he'll be remembered at East Perth as one of the club's favourite sons.